Welcome to another episode of Grown Men 2, where we have casual conversations with family and friends about various topics spanning from life, health, money. And today we are going to tackle something that we touched on, uh, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, or I could say a month ago, probably. Um, and we're going to expand on that. And it's about mental health. Now, I know mental health is not the funnest topic, but we're going to delve into it because it's an important topic, especially with everything continuing to go on in 2020. And then the Black Panther died, and now, we're facing election. We don't know what that's going to look like. We got a lot of Trump supporters. We got a lot of Biden supporters, and everybody's fighting against each other over politics. And my first segment is going to be, are we being exposed to too much negativity and trauma? And that can be us, meaning you can address it from the community or you can address it from just society itself. Anybody want to take a stab at the beginning?
Well, the answer, and I started out. It's I'll always say yes. I think the news that drives us is, just a world of negativity. The specks or the spots of positivity, is few and far between. And when it is, it's here today and gone tomorrow. We see the depressing numbers of the coronavirus, and again, not saying that the coronavirus isn't dangerous, but the COVID that we got going on, the rate of coming out of it, not 100% healthy, but coming out of it is a lot higher than death. But the one thing that they constantly put on there is death. So I think that has caused the mass hysteria that we have currently in our world today, where I think people are so frightened. I think that has caused some of the issues where you see people confronting people when they don't have a mask on, not understanding the full background. Maybe that person has a medical issue, but you don't see it. And it causes that anger. The loss of jobs. I think the businesses that are losing out. I think all that coupled together, that's just a small part, or I should say it's a large part due to the news, because people are afraid to go out. People are afraid to do things, which are hurting a lot of the small businesses. But in general, it's very difficult with the world that we have, because it's so driven by negativity. It used to be when you saw sports, you would see highlights. They would talk about what happened in the game. And now you watch sports, you watch talk shows, and things like that. It's all negativity. It's all negativity. Well, who lost the game? Oh, this person played awful. So it's just a different world that I think we live in, and that negativity just looms large. And I think it creates a lot of mental stress for many people. And sometimes that stress then creates, the issues that we have, the anxieties, the depressions. And that's where I think, that's what's hard in our world right now. And with the mental health being at an all-time high, people are sitting at home more than they ever have. So I just think it's difficult.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up what it is. It's very difficult. What about you, Eric? You got something to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's that's the case, but I also think we have a choice, right? So you don't have to put on the news, or you don't have to subscribe to that point of view. I think like most things right now, they're giving people what gets attention, right? So to me, part of it is trying to choose to opt out. And when you talk about like, you know, trauma towards Black folks, for me, it's like anytime you turn on the television, even when you're not watching the news, you might see something that implicitly has a negative message about you and your Black skin. So like for me, it's just kind of like, it's pervasive, it's ubiquitous, right? Like, of course, like the scary figure with the hood, right? Like, you know, Viola Davis, a lot of stuff that she's been posting on social media kind of showcases like how we contrast that in every way, right? Like that kid in Wisconsin who crossed state lines, who's not old enough to even carry the weapon that he has, right? What did he go do? He went and he killed a person. I think 2 people actually, if I recall that correctly. And when they put images of a guy who verified he killed people, he had an illegal weapon that he had no business, and he's not even from the area. He was protecting a business that he was not associated with, right? When you see images of him, you see images of him doing wholesome things, like he's cleaning graffiti, right? Like this guy's a murderer, right? But when you would see images of like Trayvon, it's like he had weed in his system. He was high, right? Like, so to me, it's not even really, yeah, I guess you can put it on the media, but I think for me, a big part of it is our choice to tune in and accept the narrative, you know? And then unfortunately, you know, because negative stuff does get your attention, right? It's kind of like you can get looped into that cycle. So like for me, it's just like at some point, like I try to stay informed, but I understand like when I read stuff, when I watch stuff, I understand that most of the people who are writing it are not writing it from my perspective, my viewpoint. You know, you don't have people writing stories and sharing news who knows what it's like to every day get up, and all you have to do is search. If you want to find an image or a story of a Black person just being Black and then getting killed, I mean, you could probably find one every single day if you just looked, right? So they don't know what that experience is like. So for me, I feel like we got to do a little bit of work to kind of shield ourselves and protect ourselves. I'm not saying be ignorant, but yeah, you got to, because everything is going to say something negative about Black and brown skin right now. And it is worse because of the, I think the election for sure.
Baby, got anything?
Yeah, the main thing I got with that is, to me, is the media just likes to play off of fear and create that panic in people, because people don't like to think. People are naturally lazy, and so they want to be told what to do. Like when someone's like, oh, where is this? They just want you to tell them instead of you trying to get them to get to the answer. That's my manager speak coming out there a little bit. But to me, the thing of it is like, I know a lot of mental health. Like I know there's situations where you're born with things and you know, that's out of your control. But with mental health as right now, to me, with COVID, I feel like that's a choice, that you're making a choice to be in a negative place and pay attention to those negative things. Maybe something did happen to you. Maybe you did lose your job, or, you know, got furloughed, and or you're not making as much money as you did. So maybe something did happen to you. That's life to me. And it's all about the choices that you make afterwards. So if something happened to you, what is your next step? What's your next course of action to get better, instead of being down about it and letting your mental health get worse? Like I said, I'm talking about, to me, more COVID situation. Like I talked to this guy at work. So I do check-ins at my job with everybody every month, and I ask them specific questions when we're doing check-ins and stuff. And this guy, he's specifically a really good worker, but you could just tell, you know, over the last like week and a half, he was just off. Like, he was missing stuff he didn't normally miss. And it's like, yo, what's going on? So when we finally talked to him, he was dealing with a couple personal things. Some family members were sick and things like that. So he was dealing with that. And then, he talked about that he literally looks at he lives with family. So the bedroom is kind of his domain. So he literally works in his bedroom, sleeps in his bedroom, eats in his bedroom, plays his video game in his bedroom, everything in his bedroom. And so to me, that's a choice. And that brought him down because he wasn't even getting out of the house. Like, it's been forever since he left the house. And so to me, with the mental illness, like during this time, that's a choice. He made that choice to sit in his room and either play video games, work, or sleep. So that was a choice of his, and that affected him in a negative way. Just like the media affecting people sometimes in a negative way with the fear and all that stuff that they put out. So to me, a lot of that stuff right now is a choice. So I just hope that people decide to get themselves better during this time. What can you do to better yourself during this time? Because people don't realize it, but man, this is a prime opportunity to get yourself some growth. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been saying that for a while. Well, I said that. I know I talked to Dante about that. COVID has allowed a lot of people with dreams to pursue them easier. Also, just open up some different kind of doors, different style doors. It may not have been the same ones you thought would be the way to go about things, but it also opened up how you pursue your goals and stuff like that. With that being said, we can sit here and blame media and all that kind of stuff, but like I said before, we consume so much because we choose to consume it. We make a decision to consume what we want. On the flip side, though, Facebook, Twitter, and all those kind of things are so embedded in our lives now that they become normal. It's like back in the day, my grandma will always want to watch the news at 11. That was her thing. She had to they didn't have any other way to get the news other than somebody telling them something. So the news at 11 was it. And every time I was there when she watched the news, the first thing she would say is, there's always something going on in the world. It's always something bad. And I'm just thinking, because that's what they're telling you. If they don't tell you that, but also we hold on to those things. They can put 1,000 stories that are good on, and we hear one story that's bad, and all we do is going to hold on to that bad story, because that bad story, like anything bad, just keeps growing in your mind, and this topic was important to me. I turned last Monday, and seeing Chadwick Boseman pass from colon cancer at 43 made me realize that could be me. I'm not the healthiest person, but soon I'll be working with Athlete City and getting that body right, doing my things right. But I know for sure that could be me, because I for years haven't been eating right and doing things right, and and not that saying that's what happened to him. Is I don't know his situation, but it made me think about also how I'm affecting my mental health by exposing myself to so much of this violence that's going on in our community, because I need to justify why police should do their jobs properly. But what can I do to change it? I can voice my opinion, I can voice my thoughts, but am I really actively going to change legislation? Am I going to change the mind and hearts of these police officers that are doing these heinous things? No. So what I realized is this: I have to change my circles. My circle has to be the best circle I can possibly have. And changing my circle will help me also see, not only know that there's bad things going on, but I can put things in place to help more people not take those routes in life to where they have to deal with that issue, or at least they can avoid some of those circumstances that create those issues. I used to never post anything about my financial work and stuff like that on my page, because I want to keep everything separate. I have a separate paid for my financial work and stuff like that. But then I start saying, why don't I? You know, I post all my political points or all my social points. So why don't I post my business stuff on there? So I was like, I've been focusing so much in my personal life on trying to fix wrongs that I have by myself no control of. So now I'm shifting to where I'm going to focus on the things I can control. And that starts in my household. That starts in my household, and then it connects from who else I can touch, who else I can touch. And from there, hopefully I can build a tree of life or a tree of something that allow me to help a bunch of people in different ways and different avenues. And it'll keep me from falling into that trap of that negativity. Because I tell you, every day it's somebody getting shot, and they look like me, So if they look like me and every day somebody's getting shot, I have to figure out how can I have empathy for that situation, but also have the mental strength to keep moving on my same goals and my same dreams that I have also, but not discrediting or abandoning the fight for that justice for those people. And I think that's the hardest thing I'm dealing with right now. But I realize I have to fix me too in the middle of that. So, I try to change my focus. I don't know if Dante, did you hear us talking about what we were talking about?
Heard a little bit of it. I didn't know what the question was though.
All right. It's all good.
So Byron, I just wanted to, you and Faye kind of brought up a good point, where I think there are a lot of instances that, we bring some of the mental health to ourselves. And then I think that there are other situations where the mental health kind of comes to us. Being laid off of a job, that's not something that you have control over. I know depending on if you have kids, you had to be a teacher. Some people like me, where I was working from home, I got lucky and we had a babysitter for the most part, but I know a lot of my coworkers had to try to help their kids with school during the day while trying to work an 8-hour job, and then also cook dinner, get everything ready. So I think some of those wears on you, because we are people and creatures of habit where, I used to go to work. I had a 30-minute ride on the way into work that I got to decompress. I got a 30-minute ride on the way home to decompress, where now I literally wake up and I go from having kids, I come downstairs, I work. When I get done work, I come upstairs and the kids are right back there. So a lot of those outlets that, me personally that I had, I don't have anymore. And I can see, working in the mental health field for a long time, how that can have an effect on you, because now you're out of your routine, things are different. And when you're talking about dealing with school, trying to keep a young, I would say elementary school child, possibly even a middle school child, trying to keep them in front of a screen and paying attention while you have the job that is, putting a roof over your head. And you don't want to put that in jeopardy, as well as you don't want to put your child behind. I just think that creates some of that stress. Now, how we deal with stress, I think, is where you guys are. I would put what you're alluding to is how we deal with it. And I think we have to use a lot of the outlets that we have, whether it's friends, family, calling a specialist. And I think we can't be afraid to talk about when you're having a rough time and talk to those people, because same thing, employer. Some people may feel comfortable with their employer and letting them know, and their employer might be like, hey man, listen, go ahead and take a day off, just, but I think those things are things we have to do, is find avenues for that, because again, there's certain things and certain stressors in life that are always going to be there. How we deal with them is the bigger point, in my opinion, because again, I always had stress at work. You're trying to get stuff done and you're trying to, balance life. It did change when COVID hit, but I think for the mental health and for our well-being, I think a lot of that, the gyms closed down. That used to be a huge stress relief for I don't know how many people. So did they try to find outlets to do things differently? And I think all that plays into the mental health. And are we taking care of ourselves, not just either physically or mentally, or it has to be a combination of both.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes into our next part, unless somebody else want to add on to that. Our next part of that conversation is, do we feel comfortable reaching out to friends and families about our feelings as men? And
I don't think we have a space for that, really.
yeah.
Right. I'm not saying nobody does, but I just don't think. I mean, take what most Black folks think about therapy, right? Not regarded very well. I think at first maybe that came from a place of, you couldn't really find, and you probably still today, you can't find a whole lot of people who look like you and really create a space where you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
To share that experience. But no, I mean, I think we all heard it in some form or another of be tough, be strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think as a community, we are very comfortable with that. I mean, someone who I love personally and I watch their stuff, but I just think, oh my God, why do they share so much? Will and Jada, right? Like they crack me up. They're fun. They're very open people. But in the back of my head, I'm just like, why are they spilling so much of their stuff? But that's what it looks like, right? Maybe not as far as that, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to share all my business, right? But you gotta have some place to vent to, and I don't know if we do that very well.
Yeah. What do you say, Dante?
Yeah, I think Eric said it perfectly. I would say personally for me, no, I don't do a good job of going to, I guess, family or friends, maybe a couple people here and there. But I think that's just as far as the way that was brought up, my dad, my cousins, it was always be tough. What you crying for? You supposed to be a man, like those kind of things. So, like I remember one time Joe, my wife, Joe, for you guys that don't know, she got on me one time because we came home to visit and we were actually at her grandmother's house and my dad came to see me and we were getting ready to leave. So he came to see me and it was probably my maybe like second or third time maybe seeing my dad ever cry in my life. And I'm sitting here like, man, what you crying for? I say, what you a punk? Like, and Joe was looking at me like, what? What do you mean? I was like,
you said that to him?
Man, like growing up. Huh?
You said that to your dad?
Yeah, I said that. I said, man, what you crying for? You a punk? Because that's how he raised me.
Yeah.
It was always like, you better not cry. You better go, like, you better go do this. And so, like, me seeing that, I was just like, I was taken back because I'm like, and, everybody knows that, not crying doesn't make you a man. And now even more so, I wish that I would cry more. And, but I don't. But that was my mindset growing up. It was like you a man, so you don't cry. Like you a boy. Like that's stuff that girls do. Stop whining. Don't be a sissy. So like those are the things that I heard and that I saw. So like so for me, and then also too, like we really didn't talk about our feelings that much. It was like you either happy or you upset. It's like no in between, So I really never had the outlet that I did that. So I think like football for me was like my biggest outlet. So if I was frustrated, I was upset, I'm just gonna go out there and hit somebody, and and I relieve my stress, and that's how I handle me not talking or talking to people about my feelings. And but I do believe that as men, we don't do that enough, and we should. And it's definitely a struggle even to this day. Like just having conversations with my wife, about certain things, because I don't know how to fully express myself when I'm talking or doing certain things. So yeah, I definitely think that that we should definitely be able to do that. And I do think that as the Black community, as far as having therapists and being able to talk to somebody that can help you through certain things, I think that's good. And I think that's also can show. I think that also will help with a lot of other things that we do to try to cope with the issues that we're dealing with, and we don't know how to handle it. And I think that's why you have a lot of people that drink. That's why you have a lot of people that smoke. That's why you have a lot of people that do a lot of stuff that they do. So, yeah, that's all I got to say.
That's good. It's good. That's a familiar terminology, and for men, just like Eric and Dante was saying, grow up. All you know is be a man. Figure the rest of it out. Don't cry. Don't let nobody see you cry. And, then when we see somebody as a man crying, you take a step back and like, okay, what's wrong with him? And I think now that I'm older, I think it's the craziest thing in the world, that we think emotions make you weak, because I would think that it will make you more human than anything, make you stand out away from the animals or from, robots and stuff like that, because humans have emotions and we should be able to express them. But society taught us to do things differently. And not only society, our families, our families did what they had to do. I mean, they knew that there was something in front of them. They had the obstacle they had to overcome. They didn't have time to address those feelings. Or if they didn't have the resources to get that help. So they put it away. They just pushed it to the side and kept going. And did that help? Some people probably pushed them to their goals, but they still had those issues later on. They were searching for something else, and drugs and alcohol and things like that became their vices to cope with that. Like I said, on the last thing, I suffered from depression. Didn't even know it, because throughout my life, I was just sad for no reason in my mindset. No one knew that, because I would be happy and smiling in front of everybody else. But when I'm by myself, I was always sad. And I didn't realize until I started studying psychology. Now, keep in mind, this is years later. So keep in mind this, I bypassed knowing all of this, that I was depressed, until I was an adult, from studying it, not even being helped. So no one knew all these times my mindset. And I faked it till I made it, So now, fast forward now, I don't hide those emotions, like I have Angela to bounce some, ideas and thoughts and feelings and all that off of. But I still don't find myself being able to call family and tell them that same stuff. Even with my mom, I couldn't call her and say, hey, I'm feeling sad, or I feel, and, for a lot of people that know us, this past year, we've been through a lot as a family. So it's hard not having a soundboard or someone that you feel like you can say, hey, this is how I feel, and have someone to not judge you on that. You still feel like at the end of the day, you still quote unquote man, but I'm hoping that at least through what we're talking about, that people start realizing that the definition of a man has been obscure and just toxic for so long, that we need to get out of it. We need to redefine and realize that men have feelings, men have viewpoints that may not mesh up with how society wants it to be, but that's okay. We're okay with that because society doesn't dictate who men are, and it shouldn't. You know, you shouldn't be who you are. And I think that's the hardest part, is feeling accepted for just having those feelings, you know. If I don't feel accepted, I'm definitely going to deny those feelings, at least in front of somebody, you know, and that's like anything. So I think that's our biggest thing with family. You know, you bring something to them and they don't have that mindset. What are you going to do? You going to tell them again? No, you're not going to trust them again to say anything. So, and I think that's why I said before, I have to start affecting my circle first, so I can have a healthier circle. So when I'm addressing these traumas and these issues that are going on in the world, I'll have a network of people or a network that's supportive when I'm feeling down or something like that. And that way I'm not feeling like I'm lost in between these situations.
Yeah. You said something that really connected with me just now. And it's like, it's this whole feeling of like, even as a man, as a Black person, like you always have to like hide yourself in some degree. You disagree with a thing at work, don't show that, right? Like you feel you can never just kind of like be yourself, or at least that's what you're taught anyway, right? I can tell you personally, I feel like I'm going through a moment right now where I don't care anymore. Like, it's just, I'm not going to achieve what I want to achieve in life if, you know, I'm in a situation and I'm like, I want to say this, or I want to share that, and then I don't, and you're looking in the rear view saying, oh, I regret not saying something, I regret not speaking up. And for me personally, that might make a lot of people feel uncomfortable, but this is what it looks like, you know, and everybody's got to get used to that, right? Yeah. This is what it's like to see an honest Black person every single day. And it means when you say something that's inappropriate, rude, or maybe you're not thinking because no one's ever challenged you like that before, right? Well, now I'm going to challenge you, you know? So I try to find ways to be courageous, you know. At work recently, they made some announcements about, like, you know, social and racial equality. And one of the things that they did is said, like, we're going to double Black leadership this year at this level and up to that level. And then they said, we're going to do it again in 2021. And my finance organization, it's got like 1,000 people in it. And they have this giant group chat. And everybody was like, so there's one very specific meeting where they're going to talk exclusively about this. And before the meeting, everyone's like, get on, make sure you watch it. This is so important. This is so important. And then when it's done, nobody says anything. No one says anything at all. Like, I'm like, okay, so you have 15, 20 people before saying, watch, watch, watch. Now they came on here and they said some things and no one has anything to say. Nah, I can't let that sit. So I definitely stirred the pot, and I definitely went in there and said, this is what people are expecting. This is what people need. This is like, it's not, you know, hey, so sad, we're with you, we stand with you. It's actionable, and they're doing something, and this is courageous, and they should be applauded for doing this, you know? And, you know, that gave some other people that gave some other people the space to kind of step up and get into the conversation. But at the end of the day, I just think there's too many people being quiet about what they feel across the board. You know, like we have this habit, you know, back of the bus, right? When Donald Trump and his casinos, back of the house, right? Like you always try to shrink your visibility as a Black person in this country because attention is not a good thing for you, right? And now I'm like, you know what? Forget that, man. Like, you just got to deal with it. You just got to deal with it. I got my 2 cents, and you're going to hear my 2 cents, and you can show me the way out if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You know? but I feel like we just got to kind of step into those spaces and I think that's just across the board, and really just reflecting who you are and sharing that with people.
That's exact. Yeah, that's exact. Especially in the workplace, our spaces are very limited in how we communicate and how we interact with working, which is why I don't work in those spaces anymore, because I couldn't handle that censorship. You know,
you had a tough environment. You had a tough environment, though.
Yeah. So that censorship was hard, you know. But what I'm realizing also is this: even with that censorship, I think right now we have the unique opportunity to be us, wholly us, and we'll have more acceptance than we've had in a while. Because right now we have a lot of allies that we probably, even if we did have them before, they didn't show up like they did now, because they're, and you know, I don't know what the plan is or what's going on in the world, but it seems like they're directing their viewpoints towards strengthening how people view us as Black people. But as Black men, we definitely have a bigger responsibility for our families, friends, and our culture and community, because for so long they've took us out of the formula, out of the equation, you know, through various things. And I'm not going to go into all that. We just know that they took us out of the equation. But as you see here, we have 5 of us who are here who are standing strong. And I know there's 5 more and 5 more and 5 more, you know, and I think at that point we have to make leaps towards correcting some of the, let me not say correcting, overriding some of the issues that were put in our way or put in our plates, that we can't no longer say this is okay or this is how it was. We got to say this is the new norm. You accept it or don't, this is what it's going to be. And treat our people and our community, and not talking about just Black people, but just people in general, in the fashion that we want to be treated. And when we do that, I think it'll open up other doors for us to be able to express ourselves as wholly as we can, as wholeheartedly as we want to be. I think right now we're still trying to pander behind, you know, what society says we should be and what we want to be, or what we should accept, you know, on what we feel oppressed by and what we shouldn't accept, you know. So it's like that confusion state. And under that, we're still trying to figure out, how can we address all these issues, say how we feel, also remove all the toxic issues. And, you know, there's like 1,000 things we're trying to do all at once, and we need to focus on the one thing that's most important, which is ourselves internally, and our mental health is that biggest issue. Because if we're not strengthening ourselves, how are we going to do it for anybody else? You know. What about you?
Yeah, Byron, I agree. I was going to say, Byron, I agree. I think, you know, we all got to take care of ourselves and, you know, try to figure out, we can't be too proud. We can't be, we got to be mindful. I think a lot of African-American Black men carry a lot on their shoulders. And sometimes it's too much to handle at a moment. But I think that's where we got to be strong and try to, because again, you know, you guys have we've all alluded to the issues of where our status is in the world, or I shouldn't say in the world, in America. And, you know, that plays a part in it. Our lives are difficult as it is, and you're fighting an uphill battle. So we need to be as primed and ready as we can be. And if that means that we need to get a little bit of help, then so be it. But I think that's where we individually have to take on that task to say, I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna get better, and I'm gonna do better.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Fabe, you got anything you want to add to it before I go to the next?
Yeah, I want to add that I do think as well that people need to reach out and speak to someone, either in regards to their mental health or anything. There's great benefit in reaching out and using others to lean on. From personal experience, about 2 weeks ago, I had a situation go on, and I got down and went into a dark place, and I had to talk to Dante and everything, and or I hadn't talked to Dante for like 3 days. And so I think if I had initially just reached out and kind of got what was going on and got it off my chest, his experiences could have helped me a lot sooner and kept me from going as deep as I did. So I think there's great value in having people that you can talk to and reach out to. So even if it doesn't have to be a therapist, people. So it's either family, friends, or there's like Facebook groups where you can find common people that have common interest. I know there's an app called Meetup where you can find people that have common interests.
Yeah.
So get out and be around people that have these common interests and likes and things or hobbies that you have, so that you can have someone that you can resonate with and get close with, so you can open up if you are holding on to things, because it ain't good.
Yeah.
It ain't good at all.
Yeah.
We are social creatures, man. Isolation doesn't bring anything positive.
Yep. Yep. So with that transition, and we were talking about the strategies, how you were talking about Fabe, that is the next segment part of it. And it's what are some strategies we can use to cope with day-to-day stressors such as work, family, and grief. I mean, grief is a big thing too. So, and I'll just say for me, it's always been the worst thing for me was always I addressed everything the wrong way. Isolation. I would distance myself from family, friends, to stay to myself. And the mind is terrible when it's just out there alone and not stimulated. It just goes off on its own tangent, and it pulls you in deep and dark holes. And I realized that anytime I had deep depression was because I put myself in a situation where I isolated myself. I didn't continually, expose myself to others, but I also wasn't letting them in anyways. But at least if I was exposing myself to other people, I was getting an outlet. With COVID, it has affected a lot of people. If you're single and you don't have someone in your house, you're by yourself. And if the law or the regulation or whatever it is that's telling you to stay in the house and you can't go anywhere, all you can do is talk to somebody on the phone or text them or Facebook, and all you're seeing is just negative images of everything, you become depressed and you may not know it. And your family's not going to know it because they don't see you, they don't talk to you, they may just think that you're just working hard or just busy. And then next thing you know, you're in this hole and you can't get out. So I encourage anybody to find outlets that you enjoy, such as, anything, walking. Exercise is a way to get rid of a lot of things. I don't do it. I will be, but I don't do it. Full gym downstairs, but just don't use it. But I play video games. That's my thing. Or I watch video games. I watch people playing video games, which is the weirdest thing to me, but I've learned that that's my highlight. And that removes me from reality, though. That removes me for that moment that, okay, there's some enjoyable parts of life right now, and whether that's a false sense of hope that I'm giving myself, it's enough to get my mind out of that hole for the moment, and I can work on some other things, because I think it takes steps. We can't assume that mental health, addressing your mental health is a one-time thing. It has to be a constant thing. It has to be it may be an everyday thing. It may be the everyday thing for the rest of your life. You have to be able to address it, and you have to be okay with that. And a lot of people think that, just like communication, they think, oh, I've learned my communication But no, it's something that you're always trying to learn. It's something that you're always trying to better or get better at. And I think coping mechanisms or ways of coping strategies should be tested. Test some. Don't just assume that one works, because eventually it'll stop working, and then you got to find something else. So find a bunch of different things and mingle with it. That's my point of view as far as for being able to handle those things, because there's no one way that can help you get through any stress. There may be 30 different ways. So if there's 30 different ways, have them on deck, have them available.
For me, Byron, I don't cope very well. I hate change. Definitely, when you said grief, processing grief, that gave me anxiety. You just saying it. I don't deal with things like that very well. And for me, it's growing things, right? Like, because it always gives me a sense of purpose, and there's something happening. So it helps me flex my muscle of patience. And in the time when I'm working on a plan, or I'm out in the garden, you find clarity. So for me, that's always just been like a go-to, like get outside, get in the garden, grow something, being out in nature instead of being, closeted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
do you know why you find clarity there?
Are you asking me, or are you about to tell me?
I'm asking you if you know why, but I can tell you too.
For me personally, there's two pieces to it. One is I find it kind of freeing, because I don't feel like there's no one around, right? So there's no pressure. And with everything kind of removed, I get this time to just really just work over stuff, like these epiphanies will just kind of come to me in the silence, right?
Yep.
And I mean, the biggest thing that keeps coming to mind, especially during times like this, is there's no wrong answer when you're taking care of yourself.
That.
Yeah.
Personal development.
Yeah. It's just, when I'm out in the garden, I'm really focused on me.
And your brain isn't distracted. That's the main thing. Your brain isn't distracted by anything else. So it's allowed to just flow with all that stuff. So yeah, that's good, because that is where anything that you want to do, that is probably where you'll do your best thinking about it.
Yeah. That's been my go-to. Jogging sometimes, but I hate it. I go in cycles, but yeah, that's what works for me.
What about you, Fabe? What works for you?
It's crazy to think that with all of this negative and bad stuff going on, that for me, I've had incredible opportunity this year. I don't know how I'm not trying to put this in a bad way, but it's like without COVID, there's probably a lot of things in my personal growth that I probably wouldn't have been able to do, because being able to work from home and then work not being as crazy, because pre-COVID, I was probably working maybe 50, 55 hours a week pre-COVID. So constant overtime and stuff like that. So I just had the lawn business and stuff like that. So being able, like, workload at work going down, being forced to work at home, which now allowed me sometimes during work to focus on my other personal goals that I wanted to do. It allowed for tremendous growth for me this year. And I just see so many opportunities. So like I set out, my immediate thought when all this was going home, not immediate, when we had to go home, so like when it got real in April with COVID, my immediate thought was, okay, this is going on, it's crazy, I want to come out of this better. how do I come out of this situation better than what I was going into it? How do I use these opportunities that I have to get better? So that's where I've been on the personal development. And I found within myself, I never realized this, I came to this epiphany that I enjoy learning. I absolutely enjoy it. If like I'm not learning something, it feels like a boring day. So I'm constantly on podcasts, constantly on YouTube. You know, I feel I've gotten better with planning stuff. Like each business that I've grown, I've gotten better about how I do it and how I run it. Like this podcast, I have stuff like I got spreadsheets and this and that and da 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 da. Like, man, have I gotten so laser focused that it's insane. And so that's what I preach to anybody right now is to get personal development, invest in yourself. You invest in yourself and you will see so much success and you will put yourself in a better situation for you and your family.
Yeah. 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 So it seems like we all have that same circle of ideas, which circles back to our individual selves to overcome the negativities, the traumas of society, but also to excel in this kind of negative world. And we all have different careers and businesses that we're doing. And I think we're all addressing it according to that approach. I mean, I know I am. I mean, prior to COVID, I wasn't as focused. I knew I had business, things, and I was going to just launch it, how I felt was necessary for that time. But when COVID hit, it was time to focus it more and take very strategic steps towards how I do things. And that's good because that allowed me to not spend as much money, for one, but it also allowed me to focus only on the things that were going to be profitable. And not necessarily being profitable in money, but profitable in my own life, not wasting energy on things that didn't matter, So I think it's been a blessing. I know it's been affecting a lot of people negatively, and not saying it didn't affect me negatively or anything like that, but I'm taking some of that good that came out of it and making sure I multiply it. I don't want to come out of this situation next year or whatever happens for next year and not have any lesson learned out of it. Just like you said, Faye, learning something from it. I'm learning how to do business, remotely more, not having to, I don't have to go and do closings, which is great. I don't have to be there because, at a closing yesterday in Northport. Northport is an hour and a half away from me. So I didn't have to drive there, That's a good thing about COVID. But the bad thing is that it makes you learn yourself. And that's I think that's the biggest, the vulnerability of that, of learning that you have insecurities, weaknesses, and stuff like that you may have just overlooked because you didn't address them before. You just like, okay, I can do this, I can do that, but I'm not even going to address these weaknesses. I'm just going to go past them. And now I have to address them. Like, okay, I hated phone work. I like talking to people straight up, So now I'm focusing more on phone work, Well, it's not as bad as I thought. But before, when I had another option, what did I do? I chose to go away from it. Now it's like, I don't have another option. So learn it, do it, I can close a deal now on the phone better than I did years. And I'm talking about years in the business, and I just never thought about it because I can go to somebody's, face to face and do a better job, but now it's, I'm fine tuning the skills that I avoided before, and, I give COVID credit for that, and I know Dante got some, he's getting some credit for that too. He's going to be building some big things with his business through this COVID environment, right?
I just hope he remembers us, Byron, when he hits the big time.
I know. Pastor Parker.
No, I'll just ask for just $20, Dante. Just 20. That's it.
$20 and a Coke.
I don't even want to go.
Not cocaine. Coke.
Whoa.
Coca-Cola. I just want to make sure because it's 2020.
I definitely have a Coke story, but this is not the place or time for it.
Yeah. Now, Fabe, I know you had a topic you wanted to address. I don't know if you still have that in mind.
Mm-hmm. You want me to bring it up?
Yeah, go ahead. Bring it up. Man.
Okay. So the topic that I had, it was what Eric alluded to, was in the Black community, you know, we talk about, you know, being held down, being oppressed and things of that nature. And I'm definitely not saying that we weren't. So that's not the point of this message or this question.
You better come correct, baby.
Yeah. When you put that, when you put that preface there, I'm thinking in my mind like, okay, this preface better be.
I'm ready. Because listen,
go ahead, get it out.
So back to, you know, I alluded when I spoke earlier, I talked about choice. So it's you always see in movies, TVs, they all, you know, for the Black community, their only way out is through, you know, through basketball, football, whatever. That's the only way out for the Black community. I ain't got no other way because I gotta hustle. And with that, what I'm saying is I feel that that it is a choice. That hustler who's saying, well, I ain't have no other opportunities, this and that, so I'm out here on the streets. Well, to me, like the point of self-educated entrepreneur, there's so much nowadays, there's so much technology, there's so much information out there that if you want to know something, you can find something out. So what do you guys think as far as the Black community? We're saying, well, they're oppressing us. Well, why aren't we in the Black community encouraging each other to learn ourselves?
Hold on before anybody answers that.
I'm ready.
I just want to tell the fans that that's a question. It's not an assumption.
Yes, it's a question.
So I don't want people assuming that he's saying slavery was a choice kind of thing.
No.
Oh man, we ain't Kanye around here.
That's what I want to make sure.
No.
That people know that there's a question, and it is a very valid question, and I'm sure we're gonna have some great answers on that. So who wants to take it first?
Oh, I'll take a swing for sure.
I knew Eric was gonna take it.
Sure. For me, kind of the first thing is we need to look at ourselves and say, who are we outside of the lens and the narrative that this country has cast upon us, right? And we see that all the time, right? And that's not just something that affects, you know, Black people, right? Like that affects everyone, right? Like America tells a narrative, like here's what a good white family looks like, right? Mm. And there's a lot of people who don't fit that and they struggle, right? That's why you got the little shooter kids. That's why you got the goth kids, people who don't fit into whatever this normal is, right? And we implicitly don't fit into that normal. And for me, I want to stop talking about myself and my community through someone else's lens. That's the first thing I want to do. I want to shed all that stuff and say, and ask myself and ask my family, like, who are we? Like, who are we as a people? What is our culture? Because if you look at what America is telling people, like through television, through the social media, right? And you know, Byron, I'm gonna say something that I'm gonna give you a little bit of credit for something you said a couple weeks back, okay? So, but you know, don't get carried away now, all right?
I already know you're going at too. I know you're going at.
Because you're talking about music,
yep.
Right? And you know, your boy was totally okay with WAP. I love me some WAP. And you were making some real good points, but I was more on the freedom of expression kind of tip, right? And I sent y'all a video, I think last weekend, White Mike, That's not me being racist. That's what he defines
That's what he
himself
goes by.
as.
Yeah.
And one thing that kind of shook me for a second was when he talked about the music. And he just did a very simple comparison. Okay, there's a lot of rappers who are out there literally talking about like killing people, right? And it's not white people, it's people who look just like them, right? And on contrast, how many other country artists, pop artists, you know, any kind of other artists are out there talking about killing white people, right? And I just took a sec there and I was like, dang, you know, it's because, and then who's the consumer of that, right? The biggest consumer of hip hop music is not black people, it's white people, right? So we're making music. We are holding hands, selling a stereotype of ourselves.
That hit me hard too, Eric.
That
hit me. When he put that out, I'm like,
yeah,
yo.
That definitely shook me a little bit because I can tell you, hey, look, sometimes, man, I can be a little niggerish, okay? Like, look, when I turn on my jams, man, like, yeah, whole other side come out, right? Like everybody, I'm pretty sure we've all done it. Like you pulling up to work, you got one whole vibe, and the second about the car, you're like, okay, like now I have to be proper now, right? So like I'm pretty sure everybody can relate to that experience, but it
can't.
You never had to do that? Look, man,
Kirk Franklin.
I've definitely pulled up to work. Actually, I'll share a really messed up story. One time my boss got into my car. We was going to lunch and it auto played my playlist. That was an awkward 15 minutes on the way to the spot. Okay.
Why you just turn it off?
Yeah, he wasn't ready for it. We can leave it at that. It was a bunch of awkward trying to turn off that stereo as quick as
Oh, I see. It took you 15 minutes to get there, but the music was already off by that time. But
yeah. So like, for me, like, you know, there's a whole vibe. Like, you know, sometimes when you just got to get into a certain headspace to get through the day, right? And so like, man, like that serves a purpose for me in some spaces. But then when I'm sitting here just really thinking about what that speaker had presented, I was like, damn, like here I am, I'm participating in that, right? Like I'm indoctrinating myself, you know, on top of that, right? And I feel like that's the struggle that we have as a community. It's like if we put this aside, if we put the messaging aside, who are we? And that's hard work. Like everything that we're talking about today, the whole journey of mental health is answering that question. That's incredibly hard work. Now you want 30, 40 million people to all go through that at the same time. That's a long journey, but it's essential.
But look at how powerful, like using that example. So like he talked about when Rick Ross put out the one song and he talked about date rape and all, and the white community came and yo, that's bad, and he lost sponsors, all of that stuff. So why? That is a prime example. Like, okay, whatever, that's how they felt. So why isn't the black community coming together saying, yo, this isn't how we want to be represented?
Yeah. And it's this whole fear of, man, if we take that away, they ain't gonna let us have nothing, right? But the way I even frame that up is what we need to throw away. We don't need them to give us anything anymore. Right? Like nobody's giving me anything. I'm earning every single day. And guess what? We always have, right? We always have. And to me, that's the whole thing, is that I feel like we just got to go through this whole thing of like, you know what? I'm not focused on them. Like I'm focused on Byron and Jarrell and Dante and Faith. Like, what are you guys doing? What are we doing? I don't even want to think about them anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They need to go ahead and give my reparations. That's what they need to give me.
What's that?
Reparations.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, I want some for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I want it, but see, I'm moving on from that, man. Look, I can't hold on to that energy because I don't think
if there's a ballot and people are signing up.
Yeah, but I mean, they sign up for a lot of things. So I mean.
If they start trying to check records about who got here and who deserves what, then I'm not with it. Then if y'all trying to cut me out, man, I'm not with it.
That's the thing about it. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. This is election year. and this is the thing when Fabe asked that question, and that's why I had to preface that it's just a question, because the biggest issue I think that we face with as being Black, especially Black men, is we don't know if it's conforming or it's being ourselves when we do things. So let me put it in this perspective. We're from our origination is mostly from Africa. We'll say mostly from Africa. So if we look at Africa modern, it's still culturally entertainment. And I'm not talking about entertainment like, basketball, football, stuff like that. I'm talking about entertainment in the sense of they like to dance for music and they like to do things that are different than what they do in Europe, right? That's their norm. Their things are culturally based things that are embedded from centuries of their time, and they continue to do those things.
Well, hold on, can I challenge you real quick on that? Because I don't think that's the case. I just think the West has commoditized us.
No, what I mean is this. I'm not talking that it's an issue of everyone only does that. I'm saying that's music is a big part of African culture. You know what I'm saying? Music. I'm not talking about what we listen to today mostly, but just the ideal of rhythm and getting things done, and we do things in a certain realm of things. It's like I can't even describe how it is.
I guess what I'm
proper. When people talk about Europe, it's proper, and that's what they view it as. It's a proper thing. And when we got to America, you have to have that European viewpoint, which is proper. But anything outside of their rigid lines means it's not proper anymore. So if we always try to fall into that category of if what we're doing doesn't fall into that category, are we doing something wrong? Or are we being too Black? Or are we being too hood or whatever? And why can't we just weave in and out because we're humans? Why can't we have
that's the point I'm trying to get at is I don't think we take anything. I don't think we do things more or less than any other group of people on the planet, but they show it, right? They try to define us with that narrative, right? Like when they show you Africa, they don't show you the massive cities. They don't show you modern cities, right? They take you out into middle of nowhere and they show you the tribe people, you know.
But even in those massive cities, they still have people who enjoy entertainment. But let's look at the entertainment of European entertainment. It's still very stuffy to us. And I'm not saying
I just think they don't show it.
And they have their own groups of people who do things. What I'm getting at is this. If our culture is just totally different than what their culture is, that's okay.
Yeah.
Why is that not okay?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if it's okay for us to be us and them to be them, we can still coexist together and just have different viewpoints. I respect theirs, they respect ours. The issue is that they wrote the narrative how it should look. Mm-hmm. So anytime we do our stuff, it seems to be extreme because it's not what everyone's telling us. So what happens is this. We fight an internal battle trying to mimic success or ways to get success through their lens, like you were saying, and we're trying to make it seem like we're doing the things that they, or mimic the things that they do, but we don't have those rights. We don't have those resources and things that they have to do that. So what we have to do is overcome that, become like them, and then make it to there. But then once we do that, we lose a bit of ourselves because now we're like, okay, I've done all of this.
And you're still not
here like you, but I have lost a bit of who I was because that wasn't authentic to what I was.
Yep.
So the choice, what he was talking about with choices, even though people, we'll say Chicago, because everyone always brings up Chicago when they talk about crime and everything else. So I'm gonna bring up Chicago for the good point is, Chicago wasn't built on negativity, but Chicago was built on positive stuff. They brought negativity towards it. When Chicago started growing, the area wasn't, the areas that we live in now, or the people that look like us live in now, were middle-class people houses. That's what it was for. So then government came in and said, hey, these are houses for you guys. You guys can grow your wealth and everything like that. And then somebody decided to build suburbs outside of that area. So guess what they had to do with all those subsidized housing? They had to put somebody in there. So where did they put people? look like us in there. Now you have them pigeonholed between an area that can't grow. So the choice right now is what, like Faye was saying, yes, we have resources to say go online and do all these things, but how many of us do you see making it out of there? In our community right now, where we live at now, we see more successful people because we're not in those pigeonholed places, but in those places where it's just seeing people who look like you who are failing or who may have just a little bit more than you. That's your only hero, or that's your only example of success. You know what I'm saying? Or we just have football players, basketball players, entertainers, and stuff like that who we look up to. We don't have so many people that look like us. So when we're making choices out there, the choices are kind of a moot point, because it's like, I still can't get out of this hole. I can sit here and make this choice, but where am I going to go at? I look like this. I grew up this way. I talk this way. No one's going to hire me, or no one's going to be accepting of me. So I have to invent something. Well, everyone is not a creative, everyone's not a business owner. We know that. Everyone can't do that. So what about the workers who can't do it? And then
fight to find your way.
But this is where the choice, where I was going to say, as business owners, when we're Black business owners, we do not, and we talked about this before, it is hard for us to support each other, because what we want out of it is not always widely widespread. So if I want shoes, I want cars and stuff like that, I have to go 20 miles away and pass by 30 different places that may sell something that I want just to get to a Black store. That's too much work. So I can't make business and employ more people that look like me. You get what I'm saying? So we limit ourselves by not supporting ourselves, and supporting ourselves by growing ourselves. So now we're just saying this. It's a vicious cycle. We continue to say, I want growth, but I'm not growing my people.
Right.
I want success, but I'm not helping my people get to success. So all I'm doing is saying, I want it, but I'm not doing everything I possibly can to get it and help others get it.
Yeah.
It's always me, which is fine, but society I'm fine if that's what you want to be. But society for us doesn't look the same way for everything else. We can't just be selfish in that situation. If we want to get out of that hole, if we want to say we have those major choices to take or to make, we can't make those choices alone. And that's just point blank. I'm sure Fabe didn't build his business by himself, did he? Right.
You like, I sure enough did.
I didn't. I won't be mean. If my wife ever watches this, she'll be like, you better say I help. But no.
But you get what I'm saying. You had a support person. You had a support person that was there with you, right? It doesn't matter if it's your family or not. You didn't do it by yourself. No business runs by itself.
Right.
But our Black businesses have to thrive by themselves in hopes that they make it, because the other skin tones aren't buying their product. No. It's a hard choice.
Byron, what I was going to say is, Fabe, I understand where you're coming from 100%. And I think there's opportunity. I can imagine if you had a different skin tone, that you might have more business, but that doesn't mean that you can't conduct business and you can't make a profit and you can't be profitable. I think that I'm not going to say a lot of people, it takes work to do what you've done, and you got to have a hunger to do what you've done. And there are a lot of people that are frustrated and angry and don't feel like they'll have a fair shot at it. Now, this is a statement that I truly believe. I can take a white person at a trailer park, put a suit and tie on him, and he'll look just like every other white person. Give him a haircut. I can't take an African American, put him in a suit jacket, a shirt and tie, and he's going to look like somebody that they're looking for. And I think that's where the difference comes in. there are people that don't overcome, and there are people that do overcome, and it's hard, it's difficult, and depending, like Byron was saying, depending if you're in those pinholes, if you're a part of that, it makes it even more difficult when it comes to your success, because it's the I gotta work twice as hard for half as much, and some people don't want to be satisfied with that. Some people are satisfied with that. I think when you look at, we've talked about it, when you look at LeBron James, and I just think about everything that he's done without going to college, without having a college education, but he had a goal in his head and in his mind of, I want to be a billionaire. And he put people around him that was going to get him to that point, and wasn't going to shortcut, was going to do things the right way. And he told his boys, like, hey, I'm not going to give you this. You're going to work. You're going to get a craft. And then you go out and do what you got to do. You can have my name tied to it. You can be LeBron James' friend, but at the end of the day, you got to do it. And I think that's what we need more, is more of those people that will come and pick somebody up. I'm not saying give a handout, but pick people up, so that we can, because how many people can do what you did, Faye? You're getting ready to start something where you're going to try to help people. And that's what we need to do. We need to be able to give back, because there's a population of people, white, black, whatever, that don't believe that they can do anything.
Yeah.
But in actuality, Faye, you obviously can show them and teach them the way to do it. And I think that's where maybe sometimes the black community fails each other, is we don't do enough uplifting, whether it's music, whether it's just real life. I watch documentaries, and I, try to stay up on a lot of things. And I think where I got frustrated is just hearing how the African American community, if I have a black business, I'm not saying that you have to have an all black staff, but they're less likely to have an all black staff. And what it came up to be was, the feeling is that an African American is more susceptible to take advantage of an African American owner than a white person does a black owner, or a black person does a white owner. They feel like they can get away with things like being late. So there's a lot of African Americans that own businesses that don't want to give those opportunities, because they're like, well, I'm already at a disadvantage because I got this black owned business. So if I hire the wrong person and now my store suffers, now my business is gone. Am I willing to take that chance?
That's unacceptable.
That's part of the issue of what we're talking about right there.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was right. I didn't say it was right.
But I want to share my experiences, what you talked about between like the black and white. You go ahead, Dante.
No, I was just saying that, but that's the issue that we're talking about right now. So you're one of the ones that made it out, but then you're gonna go and say, I'm not gonna hire black people,
right,
because you are basically having the same stereotype that they try to put on us. So like that makes no sense. So it's like, okay.
But what's funny about that? Would you say that stereotype comes from where?
Exactly.
Because if you never had a black business before,
people.
how do you know that?
Exactly.
But let me tell you this. How many times have you worked in a business that has a white owner, right? And those same people, not black, are late all the time or don't do their work and stuff like that. Do we say that, oh my gosh, that business, I would never hire a white person because they're late all the time? No. We get those labels so easily because guess what? We accept those labels. We accept it instead of saying, no, that's not what it is. That may be the case for that one person, but that's not what it is. When someone says a black business, the first thing you think about is the customer service of it, or if they're going to give you what you want. But you never ask Walmart, you never ask Target, you never ask any of these companies, are they going to give you the product that you deserve? You assume that they're giving you the best. Why can't you just assume that about that? When I worked for State Farm, I worked for a black owner of this, their franchises. He was the owner of it, and he worked hard. And the only reason I left is because I wanted my own business. So, and he told me this story. He was like, being a black man in this industry doesn't make it easier. I had to work for everything I got. I mean, when he said he had to work, he was working overtime, everything. And still, for a company like State Farm, they weren't giving him his stuff just easily. This is what they said. He was telling me this. He says, to be a black man in this industry, my water has to be colder than the next person's water. The white man down the street water. We sell the same water, but mine just has to be a little bit colder than theirs for them to buy from me. And I didn't know that until I opened my own insurance agency. And my co partner, he was white. And I remember we were doing some business runs. And if you've never had a business where you had to go and deal with other businesses, as a black person, you always have that apprehension of, okay, how they're going to perceive me. No matter how I'm dressed up or how I talk or how I look, I'm always thinking that, okay, they're going to see that. What do they think I'm selling? Is it creditable? You know what I'm saying? No matter what my business was. And he couldn't understand that concept. He was like, what do you mean? And I realized this, he didn't have an understanding that no matter what, they'll see him as just another guy trying to sell them business. That's it. But they'll see me as a black guy annoying them. And then maybe later on, if I can get through that first barrier, then I'm trying to sell them something. And then they're going to compare my selling to everyone else's, not the product or anything like that, just how I am. You get what I'm saying? So when people found out that I was had my own business, they're like, oh, really? And it's weird to hear people say, oh, I didn't know you do that, because I worked a 9 to 5 also. And they were just like, oh, that's crazy. How'd you do all that? As if it's amazement. But the guy down the street can do the exact same thing. And he's just like, that's a normal thing. So I think it's just society's viewpoint of us in those realms. We create those, we keep those stereotypes for ourselves, and then we keep passing them along to every other business or every other person, and they just keep manifesting themselves. So I think for us to make those choices out of those things, we have to do it internally first. Everything goes back to internally. If I go to a black business, I know that I'm going to get service, and I don't assume that the service is going to be worse or better than anybody else's. I assume the service is going to be the service that I'm asking for. That's point blank. I need to have the blinders on that it's a black business when I walk in. Even though I'm going specifically for the black business, I need to have my blinders on that it is a black business and not have any stereotype walking with me, because that's not fair to that business. Because I deal in finance, and I'm gonna tell you this. I drive a 2009 car. I guarantee if I drove a more expensive car, people would think that my finances was better than what they are. Although that doesn't mean that's the case. They would think that my finances were better if I drove a better car. And that's the craziest thing, because if you're truly in finances, you wouldn't be buying no expensive car. You get what I'm saying? But yeah. Image is everything, Yeah. So I think it's just when we make those choices, and when people want to make those choices, they have to see something that represents them, that looks like them. That way they can feel like they can get out. Yeah. If it doesn't look like them, there's going to be an obstacle there. Bill Gates doesn't look like us. Steve Jobs didn't look like us. Eric, what's his name? What's the guy? Tim Cook doesn't look like us. Steve Jobs. What's the Amazon guy name?
Bezos.
Jeff. There you go. Rich guy. Elon Musk. None of them look like us. So if I ask you a question like, could you ever be like Elon Musk?
Absolutely.
You yes. Say absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
I started late. That's my problem.
And then okay, so now you start late. So what do you got to do to catch up?
Gotta run faster. Gotta run harder. Gotta run longer.
What are you gonna do? What's your plan? Then you got to start thinking about what's my plan to be a billionaire. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, for sure that to get to be his thing, you have to work 50 times harder. Not because of the time frame,
but I don't mean work harder than him.
Yeah.
I just mean work harder than the next guy.
Yeah.
right? All I'm looking at is the guy next to me.
See, I'm always looking at the guy in the mirror. I need to work as harder than the day I worked before. That's what I need to do each day.
To speak to something
That's incredibly high bar.
you alluded to, Jarrell. So for me, as far as the lawn business, so it's actually twofold. You guys might laugh when you hear where I felt the, I don't know, not racism, but the doubt on the Black community. But like in the lawn business, I actually haven't had a customer who made me feel that they were racist or anything like that. I've actually been very blessed with a lot of the customers that we have, and majority are white. Who were my most difficult, not most difficult, but who were very difficult and picky? 2 Black customers who wanted the most for the least. They wanted their property to look like everybody else's and look good and want all this work and want this and wanted a specific way and this and that and this and that. But boy, when the invoice came, it was a problem. And it was, I'd send a quote to these Black people, and what would they do? Oh, well, can you do this too? Oh, can you do that too? Oh, can you? I've gotten that more from them, and I'm just being honest. I don't know what it is, but from white people, hey, I need you to do this, and then they understand that, hey, I'm gonna charge you some extra money. You're asking me to do something extra, and okay.
But ask yourself this, and I want you to think of this because I understand what you're saying. But I want you to challenge yourself with this. The Black people that you're asking to do this lawn care, how often do they get their lawn care prior to you? Like, how many companies have they used? Did you ask that question?
The one before, so the first one I'm thinking of, she was using dudes with a truck and a trailer, basically, or with a truck and a mower. She was using like El Cheapo dudes. And then the second one, I know more her nature. She's an investor. For those that out there that don't know, investors are sometimes very cheap.
Stingy.
But understand this. So the reason why I didn't want you to stereotype Black community on, because keep in mind this, and this can be a full blanket statement based on my own viewpoint. So the white people have been used to dealing with companies like that. So they know what to expect and what not to expect, and they know what to get and what not to get. A Black person may not have dealt with higher caliber companies like you. They haven't dealt with the cheap ones who would say they'll do all these things for X amount of dollars. Now, they may not do great work, but they'll do those things. So when they come to someone who may have a higher caliber like your company, they're thinking, okay, I don't know what the going rate for this stuff is. So when you come out with these numbers, you may be trying to rip me off. So I'm going to negotiate as low as I possibly can for you. Yeah. And whereas with people who have money, who's dealt with these kind of companies before, they know what the going rate may be or something like that. So they're like, okay, that goes around with what the companies I've talked to before, because I've talked to 30 different companies since I've been living in this house. And that's pretty much what the rates are. So they have a different understanding of what it is what it costs for doing those things. So it's harder to say that it's just Black when you don't have a whole slew of people that you've dealt with, in the community for that particular situation. You get what I'm saying? It's like, if you want to interview 6 people, but you interviewed 100 white people, 6 Black people and 100 white people, is that a fair scenario, when they may not even understand how the business works? That's what I was saying. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, I understand. But the other piece to that, where I will say not that the people were racist. The stereotype is the word that I wanted to use. I didn't feel the people that was racist, but it's been times that I've been outside my house, my duplex that I own, doing work, doing whatever. Like the neighbor within the first 2 days of living here, I was outside raking leaves and she comes up, introduced herself, all this stuff, and she's like, oh, you guys moved in? And I always make it a point. Yeah, we moved in. We bought the place. I always make it a point to say that because I love seeing people's reaction because she's, oh, you bought it? Yes, I did. Yes, I bought this. Oh, well, you're doing it right. This and that, da da da. I've had a couple neighbors around here who have probably come out to see who the new black person in town is and talk to me and say, oh, you bought the place. Yes, I did. We're not renting. I own this, and that's my tenant over there.
But ask yourself this: why do you feel that you have to justify that?
Exactly.
Because that's the black in you. That's not the and unfortunately that's what it has to be. That's what it is.
Yeah, I ain't ready. Yeah.
Huh? And unfortunately,
Yeah,
that's what
I'm
we go
letting
through.
people know that I'm here, and
I
you're
know.
gonna hear.
And that's great. I'm not knocking that. But you see how in the black community we have to showcase that we belong.
Yeah.
But see, we don't have to.
But we choose to because we feel like if we don't, we're being outcast or they're looking at us down on us. And we should not even care what they think.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's the whole thing. If they had that notion about us, it's not going to change just because we told them that.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
It's not going to change. And the same thing when you talked about the black folks who are being so hard in your quotes, it's the same black tax that Jarrell was talking about when black folks don't want to hire other black folks. It's the same thing. It's all the black tax, right? And so for me, to me, I don't even want to bring it up. I'm just like, yo, like you're either about what I'm about or you're not. And if you can't see the value in what I'm doing, then I'm not your contractor, right?
Yeah.
You know, but this whole thing, we constantly feel like we gotta prove to them that I'm worthy to be in the room. I'm worthy to be in the room because I'm in the damn room. How about that?
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm not gonna lie.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm not gonna lie, Fabe. I'm the same way. I not with everything. You know, I don't try to. It's not a showboat thing, but I try to keep it to the point where people see that I can own something. I can be civil.
Mhm.
I can be this. And my perspective, you know, honestly, I used to get mad with being the token black person or
Yeah.
Yes.
the person, but I stopped with that because in my head, what I truly and honestly believe is now I would rather be the token, because if I'm the one that you're going to see, if I'm the one that you're going to make judgment on, you're going to see that we can be hardworking, we can be this, we can be that, and I possibly can open up a door for someone else. I think that in my head is why I do a lot of what I do. Not necessarily just to be like, hey, I'm black, I'm this, but it's like if I'm going to be the person that you guys see, I want to be not necessarily a role model, but I want to be a person. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. My name is Jarrell, and I'm going to act like I'm how I'm going to act. I'm not going to, you know, try to showboat in front of you or act extra special just because you hired me and I'm African American. No, I'm going to act like I'm me. When I go to interviews, my number one thing that I say when I get my opportunity to talk at the very end is the person that you see today is the person that's going to walk through the door. The person you're going to see 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Nothing changes. I don't put on a front here in the interview and then come in the door and act like something totally different. And in my mind, I'm always thinking about the next person that comes in behind me. I want to leave no doubt in their mind, like, okay, if I hire somebody that I believe is qualified and they're African American, no, they're not going to do X, Y, and Z. But that's why I do it. But I do. I mean, I've had neighbors, and I'm like, yeah, I own my own house, you know, own both my cars, and it's just, I don't know, maybe subliminally, I'm that is what I do, and that's what I believe. But that's just how I've started to do things.
You know, one of the big.
But go ahead, Dante. I apologize.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Dante. Before I go.
Man, I forgot what I was about to say, but you just said some stuff, Jarrell. So when I was manager at Chick-fil-A in Finish Line, I would do the same thing. To let people know, hey, I am the manager. You know, you talk to anybody, you talk to me because I'm the man. I run this.
That.
And you know, I
HNIC.
definitely have times when what is that?
HNIC.
Man, listen, and I definitely had times too when people were like, "Oh man, you the manager?" Like they were surprised, and I did it too as well because I wanted them to see that, hey, you know, a person that looks like me can be in this role that you are seeking to speak to. But then again, I feel what Eric's saying. You know, and I think we do it because we know that we're some of the people that made it through those cracks, and we have to broadcast it because it's not the norm, you know, because people don't see that more. And then if we go back to the original question that you asked me about, why don't we use this and that to kind of get us through and push up and push through? It's because we don't see a lot of doctors. You know, and I think I said this before on one of the other ones. You know, we have people that make it out and they stay out. They don't come back. You know, so you don't see those people that made it out or whatever. They live in California and they never came back. There's one show that I watched. It was what is it called? Married to the Medicine or Medicine, something like that. Yeah. It's a bunch of women that are doctors in Georgia, and one of the ladies, she is a doctor and she lived in Miami, and she's like, "Bro, I haven't been here since I left for college," and it's like, well, why? You know, it's just a lot of stuff that happened. I didn't want to revisit it, whatever. So she was a doctor that made it out, but she never went back to the community where she was from. So people didn't even get a chance to even know that she was from the same area. So the only people they see is people that play football, people that play basketball. They see the drug dealers. That's what they see. So you can, I don't want to say you can only become what you see, but we all know how important a father in the household is, and how important, you know, having a mother and having a stable environment, because what you see is normally what you're going to do. Not saying that you know, we should just say whatever, don't care, and just whatever, but you are going to portray what you see the most. And that's why when you see, so like for instance, when you see a white family, the dad's a doctor, the mom's a lawyer, it's not a surprise that they will become one of those, or somebody, or something high, what the society would say is a awesome job, because they had those examples. You know, that's why. And then when we talked about like the stuff that we see on TV, that's why the Cosby Show was so important, because you were starting to see those examples of a doctor, you know, stuff like that.
Bad example.
But, what's that?
So don't bring up Bill. Bad example, man.
Well, Bill was just an actor.
I ain't talking about him. I'm talking about his character.
Look, as we all know, all his good work is now undone. Now that's the black
character. He's still the character.
They are now the same.
Okay, we can go Family Matters.
There you go.
We'll go Family Matters then.
Yeah, Carl Winslow.
It's a rare condition.
But you know, I think that's mainly what it is, and I mean, yeah, even till this day, yeah, I do that still sometimes, you know, and it's sad that we do have to do that, you know, and I'm trying to remind myself I don't have to validate myself for others, like, because at the end of the day, you know, nobody can break me, you know. And, you know, people can say whatever they want to say. People can do whatever they want to do. But at the end of the day, you know, gosh. Go ahead, Byron. What God has for you, I ask for.
What?
And there's nothing that anybody can do about it. But you know, I feel like we feel like we have to validate ourselves to kind of put ourselves in the same circle as them. And so I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna get out. So like the whole thing with Jay-Z becoming an ambassador for the NFL, I didn't like it. And a lot of people was like, oh, well, you know, that's really good because, you know, you can't make change if you're not at the table, woo, 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 wah, wah, wah. And I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying, but yeah, he gonna sit at the table. But guess what? When he leave the room, the real conversations are gonna start. And so it doesn't even matter because you can be at the table, but you'll never be part of that circle. And you may be able to impact a couple people here and there, but for the most part, people are gonna believe what they want to believe. People are gonna think what they want to think. And so, and that's why I'm trying to get to the point that, like, man, you know, it is what it is. You know, I just gotta be me and keep it pushing. And you know, leave it at that.
I want to say one thing to what you said, Dante.
Right. Go ahead.
Because I feel like Dante's making that point. We're talking to the wrong audience. When you validate yourself to that person, they're just gonna say Dante, Jarrell, and Faye. He's just one. He's just the one who made it out, right? As soon as they see the next guy, that guy's gonna have to revalidate himself. They're not gonna say, "Oh, there's a such thing as a black doctor. There's a such thing as a black entrepreneur." That's facts, right? They know that already. We're we're wasting our time talking to the wrong people.
You were taking my point, Eric. I was about to say something to that.
To me, I'm like, I don't want to flex for you. I don't need you to know anything about my life. I want to turn around and look at my little cousins and say, hey, this is a real opportunity for you. What are you trying to do? What do you want to do? Right? You know, like, let me help you. What do you want to do? That's the people we should be directing our energy at, not some ignorant fool on the street who doesn't think a black person can own a home.
I agree.
If you knew me, you would salute me. Let's go.
I agree. That's what I was going to say. I think it's imperative. Or Jarrell, you wanted to go. Go ahead, Jarrell.
Well, I was going to say the biggest part of the validation, and I'm not saying reason, but I'm just going to go on something current. And Dante, we just talked about this. Masai Ujiri, GM for the Raptors. They won the championship. He's trying to come down and celebrate. There's a police officer that confronts him, pushes him twice. He pushes the police officer, right? Now, in the midst of this, he tells them, I am the GM for the Raptors. In a suit, tie, looking nice, and had people around him. It wasn't like he was just walking by himself. Now, the whole story, for people who don't know, this police officer, who was a police officer, then files a suit and said that he had mental, emotional problems and is trying to sue this man. So now the video decides to come out. I shouldn't say decide. They bring the video out, and then you see the police officer shove him twice. First of all, and Dante, we just talked about this. You're a police officer. What is your job description? Did you think that you were just never going to, any type of altercation, any type of anything, so you're going to go out on the street and somebody push you and you're going to try to sue him? But here, you find out that he's the GM and he's got this money. One, why did he have to say he was a GM? Two, once the credentials were shown, you should have let him go. But no. Let that be anybody else, white, we wouldn't have this issue. But he had to validate himself in that very moment of a championship game of a team that he put together. That, to me, is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm not saying it's right to validate yourself, but that then gives me credence that maybe I do need to validate myself. You need to know who you're dealing with. You're not dealing with some person that you're just going to think is a dummy. That's somebody that just might roll over, somebody who's not college educated and may not be smart, and that's what you're going to view them as. No, I'm going to make sure you understand. Again, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but it's very difficult in dealing with the public that we have. And the perception that the public has of us, it gets very difficult in trying to figure out what to do and what not to do. And then you see successful people still having to validate. That gets very, very, very difficult to see and try to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I say to that is it didn't change anything. He did it, and it still didn't change anything.
You're right. You're right. You are absolutely right.
So for me, I would just be like, nah, man. Like for me, it's just it's about taking away whatever little power they believe themselves to have, right? Like when the Karen walks up to you on the block and says, "What are you doing here?" And your gut instinct, right? Because this is the way we've been taught, right? Tell them why I'm here. Tell them why I deserve to be here. No. I'm not going to do all of that, because you need to understand that you don't have the authority or ability to card check me. You are nobody. Why should I give you that power? And that's what I'm not doing.
Yeah. Yes. Good. Fabe, you brought that conversation out of us. I'm sure you inflamed some emotion.
Conversation because, huh?
I've been triggered. I have to go get some therapy right quick.
You'd have been triggered. Well, it was a good conversation that I think needed to be had, because I don't know how, but the whole, man, my wife could tell you, like, for so long I've been like, before I thought of this podcast, I was like, yo, I don't know how, but I want to share this message. Like, how many of you, I don't know if y'all want this on YouTube, but I wanted to ask, how many of you had a father in your life in this recording here?
Let me put my business out there like that, man. No, I'm joking. No. My father died when I was 12, but he wasn't in my life anyway, so it didn't really matter.
So
no,
same
here.
Same here. I couldn't even tell you my dad's name. I'm not afraid to admit it because it's my truth. Like, this is just where my life is at this point, is I want to share with people, my truth, so that more people can see, and hopefully more people who look like me can see that you can do this. So it is not about, like, yes, I specifically work with entrepreneurs that want to own businesses and stuff, but my main thing is trying to help people. I want people to take control of their life. Like, you really can. And, like, to the people in Chicago or whatever communities, I get that they probably see their cousin, brother, sister, everybody's on the street and this and that. I just wish more people in the Black community asked why. Why do I have to, like, so why do I have to go out and shoot guns and kill people and do all that? Like, that's all that there is for me? Why? Just start asking why.
Yeah. And that's going to be the biggest thing, that the conversation just needs to be had, but representation needs to be shown also. We need to, like I said before in our last thing, we need to be controlling the images that are broadcast to our people. And that doesn't mean we got to segregate ourselves from others or anything like that. But if the narrative doesn't look like us, and that's not our true view, or that's not how we really look, then we need to make sure that whatever we're doing gets representative outside of our own circles. So, like your podcast, this podcast, Deep Third, and all those kind of things, you're talking about things that are important to a lot of people, and they need to hear about it because they need to see that, hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do this, and I'm all for everyone being successful, I'm all for everyone finding some form of success, however that looks for them.
Like
And
Eric says, break that programming.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's the hardest part, is that getting people on that, and I would say bandwagon, because it's easy to get people to fall in love with entertainment. It's hard to get people to fall in love with information.
Yep.
So we got to figure out how to do infotainment. A message and entertainment. That way people can grasp it. And that may be the beginning. I mean, it may evolve to just information or, teachings, but we have to learn that we have to go back to the beginning and build, not rebuild. We have to build us. We can't fix something because the situation that we're facing today is not a broken system. It's a system that just never was meant for us. So if the system was never meant for us, then guess what? We have to go back and rebuild our own, but not necessarily rebuild. We have to build it because it was never built. We have to figure out how to build it in our own way.
Yep.
So, and that's the hard thing to do. It's time consuming and it's the stressful thing to do. But I think as like what we're doing now, talking about it, at least opens up the dialogue to where people can say, okay, maybe they have a point. And if they don't agree, then they don't agree, but we're going to keep it moving, and at least build our circles. So if we build enough circles and we branch out more circles, eventually it'll catch on. That's my viewpoint.
It's all you can do, right?
Yeah. So anybody has any final thoughts as we close this chapter of mental health?
Is that you can make an impact. To me, you guys alluded to, wanting to validate and stuff like that. So I hear you. I just want the Black community out there to know that, to me, there are some white people that you probably can make an impact on. And I think that is important because my wife is white. And her family was very racist. So of course, when we got together, she kind of had to hide that. And then it got to a point where she couldn't anymore. Family's so racist that, when I first met them, her brother wouldn't even, we met at like McDonald's and Walmart, and her brother wouldn't even come inside. Literally would not even come inside to meet me the first time. But obviously through time and through the years, we've grown very close. And I was able, me and my family, the way that we are, was able to change the way that they looked at Black people. And that meant a lot to me to know that I had that impact on my father-in-law and mother-in-law before they left this earth. To me, that's, I don't know. I just wanted to share that because to me, that's big to know that me and my family had that big of an impact on their lives. And when I say racist, they were very racist. Her grandfather was like in the KKK, some high ranking person in the KKK and stuff. So family was pretty racist, but we were able to change their mindset.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they would say before we end this chapter?
Nothing as powerful as that.
What you say?
I said nothing as powerful as that, man.
Yeah, I know. I understand where he's coming from and why he views it the way you do, and that's always good. Conversation builds the bridges.
Yeah.
If I don't know your point of view and you don't know my point of view, we're just sitting there telling stories about something that we want each other to see, but we not even open up the doors to even let it, be shown. So I think throughout this podcast and as it grows, it'll be a part of the building blocks for each of our, networks that we create, because our authenticity, oh my gosh, our our genuine viewpoints and everything will always shine in how we talk about these issues and stuff like that. And that's all I ask, just keep it 100, even if you support Trump.
Oh, settle down.
Keep it 100.
Pastor.
If you're a pastor and you support Trump,
He's reformed. He's reformed.
Listen, I do got something to say before we get off of here. I'm out.
Okay.
I don't know sign language, Dante.
I know.
Can you translate for me, homie? I'm
Jarrell,
sorry.
what did he say? What did he say, Jarrell?
He's frozen for me.
Oh.
Lives matter.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. All right. We're going to end on this. It has been a great episode, and I want to thank everyone for listening and seeing us talk about these tough topics. I want to thank the guys for their great input, and we will see you guys next time on Grown Men 2. Have a great night.